Over the last few months, I've been busy taking my basement garage home studio from this to this. And in today's video, I want to walk through exactly how I did it and what all went into it. There are 4 components to this studio build, and the one I want to start with is actually the last one to be installed, and that's these. But I want to start with it because it's my favorite. Look at those. I mean, you're not going to walk into this room and not think that's a studio. They define the space so incredibly well. They look so sharp, so clean. There's just something about these acoustic clouds that from an aesthetic visual perspective, they make it feel like a studio. So as soon as I got them up, I was like, well, now I want to start recording some music. But also, they are incredibly effective acoustic treatment. And this is for 2 main reasons. The first is because the ceiling is a huge reflective surface that in most home studios is usually only about 8 feet up. So it's often going to be the closest reflection to you, especially if you're standing up to sing vocals. You're singing and the sound bounces off the ceiling and gets back into your microphone. The reflection gets back into your microphone, so you get less of just that direct dry signal from your vocal. Depending on the dimensions of your room, the ceiling might actually be the closest point of reflection for you. So if you run a really tight, dry vocal sound, a cloud above you can really help minimize those reflections. The second reason they have such a huge impact, and I notice it so immediately, is a little bit more complicated. It has to do with what are called room modes or resonances. And floor to ceiling resonances in most home studios are kind of at the worst size. So this is roughly 8-foot ceilings. That dimension where frequencies kind of build up and cancel out because of the dimension, it's really problematic. At 8 feet, really problematic in your low end, your low mid-range. If you want to record anything that has good low end or low mid-range fullness, you don't want build up or nulling out of frequencies because of the dimensions of your room. And these acoustic panels that I have for my clouds here are 6.5-foot bass trap panels, so they're deep enough to absorb a lot of that low end and minimize the amount of that room mode building up back here and right above me in my mix position. So huge impact and really, really helps just clean up and maintain a tight low end, which I'm very excited for recording drums in here. And the last thing I would say about these is because they're on the ceiling, they're not killing your floor space at all. That had 0 impact on my actual standing room in this room, whereas everything else I did made this room a little bit smaller, and it was worth the trade-off. But these, there's no trade-off. Unless you're like 7.5 feet tall, and you have 8-foot ceilings, then you can get acoustic clouds in your studio. And in my opinion, it's totally worth it. So these are from Music City Acoustics. I wish I could tell you I built them. I wish my panels look as good as these. They're so crisp, so clean. If you don't want to build your panels, definitely check out Music City Acoustics. I bought from other companies. These are better built and better looking and better functioning, better quality panels than I bought from other companies. Anyway, let's jump over to number 2. Acoustic panel walls. This entire wall behind me, this whole thing, this whole wall is just one huge acoustic panel. And this is something that's actually fairly common to do in pro studios, to just build walls that are acoustic treatment. It's something I never really considered in a home studio until I started planning for this build and realized I could just build a wall in front of my wall, put insulation in it, cover it in fabric, and that whole wall becomes one huge acoustic panel, which is very cost-effective way to get a ton of acoustic treatment in your space. If you are doing something like recording drums, where I want to have coverage all the way basically down to the ground so that my microphones near the floor tom have coverage next to them, this is a really effective way to do that. And it's a fairly simple process. Not necessarily easy, but fairly simple process. All you have to do is frame out the wall and then fill it with insulation, and you get all those supplies just at your local Lowe's or Home Depot. Cover it in fabric or bed sheets if you want. And then you also have the opportunity then to design on it. So in this case, I did some pretty intentional diffusion style treatment on here. So this is a scatter face design that Music City Acoustics has put out. I'll link down below where you can sign up to get this specific design. This is intentionally spaced wood that just scatters the mid and high frequencies in a way that allows the low end and low mid frequencies to pass through, but the other stuff gets scattered around the room in a way that keeps the room a little lively, but you don't have hard reflective surfaces that are just bouncing sound straight back at you and reflecting and building up a ton of energy or canceling a ton of energy. And then this here looks like plants. Obviously it's fake, but it is fairly good at scattering as well because all these little leaves are just all over, so sound is just gonna bounce off them. Low end is just gonna pass straight through it. So it's still gonna absorb the most problematic frequencies, and then it's gonna scatter the high energy around in a way that keeps the room feeling somewhat lively while still stopping just hard reflections, just bouncing straight off in a super patterned way that builds up energy. So fairly simple process. If you want me to do a more detailed breakdown of how I built this wall and the wall on the other side of the camera, that's way more simple. It's just fabric in front of insulation with trim to cover up the staples. If you want me to do a more detailed breakdown, let me know in the comments below. Let's go and move on to number 3, acoustic panels. Same as the clouds, but I built these myself. So we have 2 types of acoustic panels in the studio. We have broadband acoustic panels that are 3.5 inches deep, and then we have bass trap panels that are 5.5 inches deep. I did a deep dive video on exactly how I built these acoustic panels here. So if you're interested in DIYing your own acoustic panels, definitely check that out. The only difference if you want to do bass trap panels is that you get 1x6 lumber and corresponding insulation for those bass trap panels. The only other thing I wanted to mention is if you've been following along and you saw my acoustic plan, you may have noticed I'd planned on doing tube traps behind me here. I love the idea of tube traps, but honestly, it was just kind of expensive. It was gonna be $1,000 just for the insulation, just for 2 corners for tube traps. Whereas I've built this for, I think, just a few $100. So much more affordable to just build bass trap style panels. Now, real quick, if you're watching this and you're working on building your home studio or upgrading your home studio, I want to give you something to help with that. I've put together a completely free Home Studio Pro checklist that walks through how to create a studio that makes creating professional sounding music easier. It's completely free from the link in the description below, so be sure to pick it up. Let's go and move on to component number 4, which is my second favorite. Gobos. Whoa, these things are cool. Okay, this is a gobo. This is from Music City Acoustics. A lot of companies make these, but I think these are the coolest for a reason I'll point out in just a second. So a gobo is called a go-between. This is something that in a larger studio, you might position between 2 artists to minimize the amount of bleed between the 2 instruments, right? In this case, I'm using them more just as traditional acoustic treatment that I can move around. And I think this is great for a lot of home studios to have the flexibility to create like a little vocal booth, for example. I could just bring these really close and have a nice tight vocal booth. Or in my case, if I want really, really dead drums, I could bring these right up to the drum kit here and make it a much deader setting back where the drums are being recorded. Or, as you can see on this side, this is actually reflective. So this is basically kind of a diffuser, not really, but a little bit of a diffuser that's going to reflect some of that energy back. So lower frequencies will still get absorbed through this, but the mid and high frequencies will get pushed back towards the drums. So if I wanted a slightly livelier sound, I could flip it around so that that side is now pointed towards the drums, give me a livelier sound when I'm recording drums. I have 2 of these, so I'll have the other one right up next to me as well. And that's gonna actually reflect more energy back in a way that kind of creates excitement. This room is really dead now. There's a lot of acoustic treatment in this room. So by having something that has this flexibility, this versatility, I can do just about anything. I can get any type of sound I want. Now I have another type of diffusion that I haven't actually set up in this space as well, that I'm gonna use kind of like a gobo where I can move it around and reposition it. That's our space coupling diffusers from Music City Acoustics. I'm very excited to get those going, but I haven't played around with them enough to really show you how I'll be using them just yet. So keep an eye out for a video on that in the future. But yeah, these gobos are awesome. And then I'm also, when I'm not recording, I'm just gonna be using them as traditional acoustic treatment pushed up in the corners. I have a door there so I can still come in through the door, but when I'm mixing, I can push this gobo into that corner and get decent bass trapping in those corners, and it's going to give me a more accurate mix position right here where I'm mixing. So very excited about these. These are gobos from Music City Acoustics. I mean, what a cool design. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. I loved building out the studio, but I'm also extremely excited to get back to recording and mixing stuff. But if you have any specific things from this video you want me to go deeper on, building the walls, acoustic treatment, any stuff like that, definitely let me know in the comments below. Or if there's any recording or mixing things you want me to cover, let me know that as well. If you haven't already, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week with another video.
One thing at a time, I can only handle